All right, we're on. Let's do this thing. So, welcome back. If you've missed the first stream, I'm Mitchell Davis and I'm building Laramates. So, it's at laramates.com. I'd encourage you to go check it out. It's a directory of a bunch of Laravel developers. You can list your profiles, get found for certain technologies that you might be using, and that you might be able to help other people with. So, what we are continuing to build in this series is an attendee list and map, and just like event information for Laracon US, which is happening in like 2 weeks, I think. So really trying to get this done quickly. We made a bunch of progress on the last stream, which if you didn't see, it's up on the YouTube channel. So maybe I can link that later. But yeah, we made a ton of progress on the stream, and then I kind of deferred all of the styling work to happen after that stream because I can be a little slow with it, and it takes time to sort of find the right rhythm and find a design that I'm happy with. So I did that after the stream, and I then tweeted this out. So this is where we got it to. So we've got the rough layout here. We've got some fake information. This is all faked. Just grabbing a bunch of like most populated cities in America, and then having them all connect up to Dallas here. So Dallas is somewhere in this blob. But you can see if I hover over them, they all point to Dallas. And that's where Laracon US is happening this year. So what we're going to do today is build out the attendees section down here, and then have the ability for users to be able to add themselves to this list. And the final part, which we might be able to do today, I'm not entirely sure, will be render those people on the map. So for now, it will just be these connections, but then you'll be able to, the plan will be that you'll be able to like click on one of these links or click on a dot here, and then that's going to kind of like filter the list to show you, oh, okay, this is the people coming from New York, for example. All right, so let's get started with it. So what we might do is, I'll bring that over. So I think we should have a new model that we'll need to create called events. And this will just hold like all the surrounding information, the name, a description, maybe a link. And we already have some of that information available to us over here. So this is what we worked on last time. So this was in the public area. We have name, the slug, which is this Laracon US 2024. Description, we've got a collection of links here. Perhaps we could even just simplify that down and just have one link. Information about when it starts and finishes. We're going to have to think about time zones to put this information in, or convert it from UTC. The city where the event is happening. Now, I would love if this would support online events or events without a specific location. So that would be handy, but we'll see how we go. And then we have our list of attendees. I think it would be really cool to have a feature where we can differentiate between speakers and attendees, so that we could show them with a different color here. So if you have a speaker that's coming, like, Jess Archer, I believe, is speaking at Laracon US this year. Let's just go have a look. Did I scroll past it? There she is. So it would be really cool to show like a highlighted, I think Jess is based in Brisbane, like highlighted in a different color. Hey, Jess is flying all the way from Brisbane over to here to speak to you. So perhaps there's this concept in this list of attendees being able to delineate, hey, this is someone that is just like in the audience, and this is a speaker. So why don't we go about trying to set this up as a new model in a new table for our events. So the way I'd go about that would be, so artisan make model. Here's where I would want to think about, okay, is event the right name for this? So I have it on a different screen, and I'm going to keep it there, I'm sorry. But I have on a different screen, just ask chat GPT, give me some ideas of some different model names. And it's come back and said conference. I don't really know if conference is the right move, because like I would love for this to also work for things like meetups, which are not conferences. So perhaps event is fine. The only other reservation that I have about event is, Laravel, obviously event is like a key thing that happens inside of the application, firing off events and then having listeners and things like that. So that concerns me a little, but we'll just go with this for now. So, so what I'll do is I can then pass to this the migration flag, I believe. So if I run that, there it is. Cool. So what this has done, you can see it's added app. It's added it in our app folder. And it's doing this because it doesn't know anything. Laravel doesn't know anything about our domains folder. We're not using a special package or anything to help store this information, like the modular package. We're not doing anything like that. We've just kind of built this convention ourselves. So yeah, what we might do today is just set up a new domain, and then we'll look at moving that event over into it. So I can show you how that works. It has also created a migration, which we'll look at soon, and those do just live here. So that's fine. We'll be able to make that work. So why don't we go about creating a new domain? So to do that, I'm just going to create a new domain called events. And then each of these domains has a domain service provider, and this is where we might want to boot up, other services that are used inside of that domain. So as a general rule, that's the very first thing that I'm adding, is a domain service provider, and then we just need to make sure that it's in the right namespace. So now the final bit that we need to do to get this domain live is to go back up to our app, common providers, domain service provider, and here's where we will add our new events. There we go. Cool. So this is now booted, and we should be able to see that if I just do something like this. There we go. So we're in. All right. So so now that we have a spot for this model to live, let's create a new directory here called models, and we will just move it over to here. Cool. So this is the Laravel idea plugin telling us that we don't actually have a factory for this one. So what I might do is look at how we handle this elsewhere. So we are using this OptiKey thing to give all of our models this allows us to have an auto incrementing primary key on all of our models, but then we have like a publicly available OptiKey, and that's just like a prefix string. So I'll show you what that looks like soon. So I'm just going to copy all of that over to our event. We'll import those things. We might call this EV. We're not going to worry about cast for right now because we've got to fill that in. So now let's get our factory. So factories. Okay, cool. So again, I do a lot of things kind of copy pasting. Okay, so this will be for an event. And then we have to define it again here. Cool. So now we can start to think about what are we actually going to bring into this event. So I can get rid of all of those. So we've got our reference here. Excuse me, 1 second. Cool. So let's check. No one in the chat, but I can see there are some people watching. So thank you for watching if you're here. Yeah, let's start bringing this information over. So here I'm thinking about migration, right? So I'm actually I'm going to close everything. Let's get our event controller back. And then in another tab, we will basically take that schema that we've already created here. So we will have a table with an ID, primary key, like we talked about. And then let's look at how we've set up some other migrations. So here's this UID that I was talking about, and I can give you an example of what they look like. If I bring over my database here, where would we have it? Are there any reserved usernames? Yeah, here we go. Maybe I will not show those, sorry. What about calls? Here we go. This perfect example. So this is the type of thing I'm talking about with these UIDs. It's just like a prefix string and then a random hash at the end, like not a cryptographic hash, but just a bunch of characters there. You've probably seen similar on like Stripe, for example, does that a lot. Cool, so let's grab that, paste that in there. So we will need a name, we'll need the slug will be unique as well, so I might do something like that. So that's how we will actually access this. Then we're going to have a name, and I'm fine with these columns being 255 characters or whatever. It's fine. If your event name is longer than that, it's probably a problem. So we'll have a description. Now this one I would like to be text. Yeah, which I think is like 4,000 characters, something like that. So that ought to be enough. For links, let's just have a single link, and we'll call it. No, I like having this ability to have a separate name and URL here. So let's go with JSON, and we will call this links. Started at, finished at, so that's cool. I think those would be a date time. Started at, finished at. We'll come back and figure out which of these are nullable soon. We've got a foreign key, foreign ID, city. How do we do this over here? Let's just copy that. Okay, so city ID for where it is happening. Now, I don't know that I want this website to now, like each of these pages to have like specific addresses and things like that. People aren't going to this as like a reference for the conference. They're going to this site on Laramates to see like, okay, this is a list, hopefully a nicely formatted list of all the people that are attending. But it's not our job in this case, I don't think, to display every like tiny detail, and that includes address. So trying to keep things fairly high level so that we can sort of generalize across cities. You know, obviously cities can be quite large. We don't really have to care if you're in the western part of the city or the eastern part of the city for your event. Like it's okay. So, all right. So we will reference that on cities, and then we're not going to put attendees in here. Cool. Okay. So now let's start moving some things around. So generally, I am putting anything that's like primary keys goes at the front of my tables, or all the way on the left, you can think of it like. So I would say that all three of these are kind of like primary key-esque. Definitely this is primary key, but these two are like basically equivalent as primary keys because they're unique and they are required as well. So where I would then put my foreign keys would be right after that. So I'm putting them in here for city ID. Now, just thinking through the structure, am I happy with this being called city instead of like location, for example? I think I am. So that's fine. So let's go with that. Cool. So then once our foreign keys are out of the way, that's where I then would sort of just start thinking through, okay, what's most important next in this model to me? So I would say the name is probably most important. I would think started at, finished at, then description, and then some links. That feels right. So now let's think about which of these fields need to be nullable. So the name will be required. These will be generated. Well, this will be generated, as will this. The slug will be based on the name, which is required, and it will need to be unique. So we'll have to figure that out when it comes time to do this. But I'll probably be creating these events, at least initially. I don't really see a need right now to give the general public the ability to create their own events. I'll probably only be using this for like large, like Laracons, for example, at least for the initial rollout of this. So perhaps there's room for meetups and things like that later, but yeah, this will do for now. So I'll just create these manually is what I'm trying to say. So we will require the name, the started at and finished at. Okay, so how should that work? What we get by having a city is we get a time zone. So let me show you that. So if I bring our database back over, you'll see for each city we have the time zone. But we do also want to support like worldwide things, or things that are happening maybe just online, or I guess it would just be online. I don't know. So how would we support that? Because if we just did these as like local time of wherever the event is happening, we could put that in pretty easily. But it then becomes hard for people like me on the other side of the world to see like, okay, what time is Laracon US actually kicking off? It's probably like 10 p.m. for me, you know? Don't know. We'll come back to that. We can always rerun this migration. Cool. So we've got Havoc Games on YouTube. How's it going? Thank you for joining. Laracon US could be held in a different city, so having a code like US or AU or IN could make sense too. So having a code like US, AU. So where would that code be? So I'm thinking of like each year that there's Laracon US, it would be a new event in the table. Yeah, you'll have, I think we've got 4 like official Laracons. We would have 4 of these for each year, and then if the city moves, it moves to New York next year or whatever, then that's easy because this is just a new event in the system. So that's fine. Cool. All right, nice. So we're going to defer on this. We'll come back to it because I don't want to get bogged down in it. So the description can be nullable, let's say, and then the links as well. I think we'll just make sure that when we're inserting in that is just an empty array, and the cast, eloquence cast thing will probably help us with that. All right, so that should be enough for us to run sail artisan migrate. And with any luck, yep, that worked. So I can now see our new events table. Perfect. So I'll get that out of the way. All right, so now what we should be able to do, I haven't actually done it before myself, but there is some way to get this to to get the Laravel idea plugin thing to, there we go, helper code generation. Okay, cool. So through pressing on my keyboard, I press Control Shift and the dot. This Laravel idea plugin thing is then able to figure out like all that information that we just put into our migration there. So I think we should be able to tell this. Yes, this is what I was looking for. So it now knows that, hey, these are all the different columns that we've got access to. So I can reference them over here. Tab down. I don't know what that does. The only casts that I want to add are, I'll make city ID an integer since that's what it is. Then started at and finished at are going to be date times, and links will be a JSON array. So let's just do that now. So let's go city ID. That will be an integer. Started at will be a date time. Finished at date time. And links. And it knows. Cool. So is there, I think it is an array. Because if it's JSON, then that just means I think that means it's an object. I don't know. We'll find out. Cool. So I set this earlier. We set the prefix for each of these, like these OptiKey, nano key things as EV. I think I'm happy with that. Generally, I want for something that's like this, which isn't necessarily like a critical model in the system, I'd kind of want to reserve that like E prefix in case there's something else that comes up down the line which is more important. So this is kind of like an offshoot thing that's unrelated to having profiles and making calls within the system. So cool. All right. So now that we've got that, let's get our factory, which if I hover over here, are we able to get this to generate for us? I wonder. No, okay, doesn't look like it. All right, that's fine. So let's see if we have like a factory already for calls. Yeah, okay. So Chris, who works with me, he's big on doing factories. I'm not as big on like test-driven stuff. I do have some factories. There'll be some here. That's right. This is what we looked at before. So yeah, so I'm not always like a great developer when it comes to doing all of this stuff, especially on like our own projects. We do operate differently for clients, but again, that's where like Chris really shines with some of the stuff that he does. So that's all right. Let's just use this and kind of modify it a bit. So we need to have a name, and let's just say it will be unique. What could we use? Business is there? It's company name, right? Let's just say each of these conference names are a company. That's fine. So we're going to store that here, and then we will go slug, and that will equal string slug of the name. Cool. We have a city ID, and that will equal our city factory. Yep. Started at, and that will equal fake date time. And let's say, you know, last 5 years. 5 years. Is that how that works? What was their example? Negative 30 years. Negative 30 years, yeah, plus 5 days. Cool. Gotcha. Okay, cool. It's really hard to see with this microphone in the way. I'm going to have to figure something out. So let's set that as our started at. And then we will duplicate this and go, we're just going to add, it's not a carbon instance. Right, carbon, we'll use, we will use date from Laravel's facades thing. So can we go from, how do you get that to work from creating it from a, it's instance, I think. Yeah, there we go. So we can get a carbon instance from a date time, just a native date time from Faker here. So now we're just going to add a day to the started at time. So this is something interesting. Somewhere in here, I'm assuming we are, I just want to find it before I show you. There we go. Perfect. So we have so many things open. So you may have seen, or you may have dealt with it yourself, that normal date times that Carbon gives you are mutable. So if we were to call this add day on there, that would then modify started at, and you would end up with both of those, the started at and the finished at here. I believe, could be wrong, but I think so. You would end up with both of them being set to the same date time, right? It would be whatever this thing originally returned plus a day. Both of them would be set to that. So because we've called over here this date use, date is a facade that Laravel gives you here. Because we've told it, hey, we want our dates to be, our carbon dates to be immutable, then that means we're able to use this. And now started at, when we call add day, this is actually returning a brand new carbon immutable instance. So it's much better. I would strongly recommend doing this because you could get bitten pretty easily without it, and you may not even know. Cool. All right, so let's bring up our, there we go, table again. Let's just see what else we might need. So we will do a description, and this will just say, how do we get that to work? sentences. Let's say we want 6 sentences, and we do want them as a string, just one string. Cool. Links. We will go that this will be an array, and the structure is going to be whatever we had over here. So name. That can just be the same company name that we saw before, that's fine. And then href will be fake safe domain. Whatever, we'll go with that, that's fine. Cool, so we're just gonna have one of those. So, all right. So now we should be able to generate some fake events. So can we just do that in Tinker, I wonder? Sale artisan Tinker. Yeah, let's try that. So if I copy this as a reference and we go factory create 10, what happens? Argument 2 must be of type array, int given. Well, you have got me there. Okay, so maybe let's create a seeder. Sale artisan make seeder. What do we need for that? Cool. All right, so this is going to be our event seeder. Perfect. Event seeder. So why didn't this work before? We go event, factory. Ah, this is where you need to do it. Gotcha. Okay, cool. So sale artisan DB seed class will be the event seeder. That is taking a long time to run, surprisingly. But did it run? It did. Cool. All right. So now we have events. So let's start getting these to work. Okay. It's created cities, which is a bummer. That's all right. So of course it created cities. So what we should have done is gone, is it with, using, model, for, how does this work? All right, we got to go look this up because I'm not 100% sure. So Laravel, here we go. Okay. So there should be factories. Here we go. So the city belongs, sorry, the event belongs to the city because, yeah, the event is being held in the city, right? So, how does this work? So we have a post that belongs to a user. Yeah, so we should be able to just say, can we just pass it an instance? Yeah, okay, you can. So like this. So we can just go for and then give it a city. Cool. All right, so let's get our code back. So we are just going to have city equals city, query. Yeah, let's just have all. Here's what we'll do. We will go for. Why would you do the plus first? There we go. We're just going to create these one at a time. Ah, I got it. Okay, so let's do cities equals city query in random order, and we want sorry, not that. We want 10 of those. Limit 10 get. Then for each of those, we will call this event factory. The reason I'm doing this is because I want our local dev environment to have like realistic cities. Just makes life a lot easier to look at on the map when you've got actual cities that you know and recognize. So now that I've got this, if I change that, we don't actually even need this variable. So now that's going to use real cities instead of these fake ones that it created. So I'm actually going to go delete those. Yeah. So has that created new states? Shoot. Cities, right. Where clause. ISO code. See, I don't know if these are real or not. Let's see. So I'm going to look at the production list of cities, states. They are. Okay, cool. So we didn't create any new states. We just created some new cities. So I'm just going to delete those from our local. Disconnect from production. Shabam. All right, cool. So now we're back to having real data in here. So if I run this, does it work? Of course it doesn't. Okay. We don't have the relationship. So can I generate that? City, that's the ticket. Cool. So if I run that, nice. Cool. So we shouldn't end up with any new cities, and we don't. But now we have events that are happening in real cities. ID. There we go. Nice. Okay, cool. So this should be, yep, and I can see it's done it correctly. It's added days, things like that. All right, let's check chat. So Havoc's come back. I guess if you wanted to filter to all Laravel USs easily, I'm not actually sure what you're building, so ignore me. No worries. That's all right. Yeah, so eventually we will have like a listing of all of the events that are in this system, and you'll be able to go in and probably just do like a simple search bar or something like that. But yeah, you would be able to filter by country or by state, by city, same type of filters as what we have on the main Laramates over here. So we got all of these. So yeah, cool. All right, so let's load our first city. So if I go here, perfect. So you can see it's still using all the stuff which is hard-coded in the controller, but now we can start actually getting this information. So we should be able to do this. Can we get this to work? Okay, so not found, and that's okay. Where are we using this? It's here. So how do we get our events to be looked up by slug, not by ID? So for that, so much going on the screen. I'm pretty sure we could set this as like the route key on the event model. Why don't we just try that? So we don't want to get the route key name as this. Instead, it will be slug. Let's just see if that works, and it does. Cool. So does this one exist? It does. Cool. And then we go rows, and it doesn't. We're in business. Okay, cool. So now let's return this in the same. Well, let's just see how far off we are. All right. So if we return to here, let's just get rid of all of that and see what breaks. That's pretty good. So we've mostly kept to this convention. Seems to be working. So let's see what's not there. We have the name, the slug worked, description worked. We do have links, and I can see that down the bottom left, that example.com. So that's perfect. That's worked as well. We weren't already displaying the started at or finished at, so we don't know how exactly that went. We'll need to look at the city, because right now all of this information is in a separate controller, which is here. So you can see this is like specifically hard-coded for Dallas. This is the ID for Dallas, because we were just messing around with it last stream. Cool. So we'll figure that out. And then the only other thing on the list was the attendees, which we haven't touched yet. So this largely just worked, which is great. So now let's get this working on the globe here. So eventually these details will be cached, which is why this is talking about like cached results. If I show you how we produce this globe, this information is cached. We only change it whenever someone, updates their details or creates a new profile. So how that works, we have this ability to invalidate a cache, but then we're storing this information for 10 minutes. And that could be a lot longer than that actually, but it's fine. So we're storing this, which is why we've got this get cached results thing. And then we just, when this endpoint gets invoked to go and fetch all of this information from the globe, then we just pull it out of the cache. It's nice and quick. So, so what we'll do here is, I think we're going to need the event in our get cached results thingo. And we need to pass that in here as well. So we're not caching this at the moment because we're just locally developing it, and I want to be able to just instantly make changes to it without having to think about it. So what we'll do, I would like to center the globe to have it focus on the city where the event is being held. And again, we'll figure out city-based events later, so online ones, worldwide meetup, etc. We'll figure that out later. So the destination is just going to be the event city. And we can make sure we load these relationships later. So why don't I bring that up? We'll just have that be the very first thing. So if I do that, is that enough? Of course not, because I need to get this to actually have the slug. So this will be, I think, called event. Yes, that looks good. So again, we're still selecting cities to show as having users randomly on the from like the US, Mexico, Canada, but it now knows the destination. And if I weird, it didn't set the focus See this? It's like it's focused not where I want it to be. It should focus on the destination here. So something isn't working properly over here. And that is because we need to load the city. So if we load that, yeah, that's better. So we've got some weirdness happening here where you can see it up there, like that's the destination. That's what I want to be in the middle of the screen. But because I think I can get rid of all of this now. I'll just leave it. Because the globe, so we have a component here, globe.view. Cool. So this globe component is what builds this up. It also builds this up. We're reusing that same component, and we just have a few props that let us like determine what type of mode we're running in. So this shift factor thing basically lets us center where the globe lives on the screen. So for looking at an event, I want this to feature like front and center. This page is all about that event, right? We have an API route which defaults to fetching this list of all of the users in the system. But for these event-based pages, I want that globe to show all of the attendees, right? And their connections here. We then have a focus as well. And this we're kind of using as like, hey, this is the toggle between are you for a specific event, in which case we don't want the globe to spin, which you can see it's not here. But over here, it does spin because we're wanting to highlight, hey, these are everyone, around the world. So we're using this focus thing to do quite a lot of logic, and we might want to refactor that later, but it's okay. So here, this is like specifically where we're setting this initial latitude and longitude. So if I refresh this, that's why like dead center of my screen is where the event is happening, right? But we can see that it is well up above the top of the screen. And if I use my mouse, I can't you'd expect I could drag down and it would then come up, but I can go this way. I also can't, there's like a limit on the bottom of the globe here as well. And that is self-imposed. So this globe.gl, which we're using, has some controls, render control. So you're able to, I think it's this thing. Where is it? It's here. This world controls. Yeah, perfect. So under the hood, globe.gl is using 3JS, and it has this thing called orbit controls. And this gives us like a bunch of different things all happening here. So this min polar angle, max polar angle, that I believe is what's, yeah, how far you can orbit vertically up a limit. So what we're going to need to do is detect if we're in this focused mode, then that means I want you to be able to move the globe whatever way you want, so that, we're not locked out like this. So, okay. So if we are in focus mode, so let's go focus, then I want to do something. Let's say 0 for now. Otherwise, I want it to work the same way that it currently does. So let's just copy that here. Does this do anything? Okay, hasn't done anything yet. So what values do we need to set here? So max polar angle. Well, I think that should be pi. So let's set that. What's the min polar angle? How far you can orbit vertically, lower limit. Range is 0 to math pi radians. Default is 0. So let's just leave it at that. Aha! That was enough to fix it. Cool. So now we can do whatever we want with the globe. We can move it any which way, which is perfect. That's what I want. So that we could see, you know, if someone was all the way over in Australia, I can just go boop and then see them, right? And this actually looks pretty cool. I quite like how all of these are converging over here. Cool. So, cool. Nothing else in the chat. All right. So we've been going for 42 minutes now, and I really want to have the ability to display attendees from the database in the map, on the map. We can figure out like styling of this later, but the map is kind of a key focus. So let's get our model and factory and seeders going for attendees as well. So now let's think about what we might need for attendees. So let's go sail artisan make model attendee is fine. Attendee will be the model name. We want a migration. We want a seeder. No, we will generate seeders when we attendees when we generate events. So we'll keep that inside of the event seeder. That's fine. But we will create a factory. Cool. All right. So we're just going to do the same thing that we did before. So you'll see now we have our attendee over here. We're going to move them into our domain. We'll deal with that later. We should have a factory. We do. Perfect. So let's bring them over to here. And then we have a migration. Cool. All right. Coffee break. So I talked with Dave Hicking about, I just have to find the tweet and then I'll bring it over, about like what information you would expect to enter into this this page to get yourself on the like attendee list. So this is what we talked about. So this is what I said. This is the whole thread, right? This is what I said. How would this work? Ask people to go to a page, fill in their name, where they're flying from. We've now moved away from the flying concept because I want to support people that are driving there instead, right? So also want to have that. So and I don't really want to have to integrate with like a flight API tracker thing. It's a lot of work for minimal payoff. So we're just doing it based on cities of where you're coming from. So Dave came back and said name could be real name or handle, airport code. Well, instead we're just going to make that city, like I just talked about. Some social links optional, profile pic optional. So I think, yeah, that's right. I talked about this on the last stream, but I've kind of evolved the thoughts a little. I think what we should do is capture the name, and we'll do a first name, last name as separate fields, because that's just generally the way that I do it. I don't want you to need to sign up for this, and I also don't want you to need to prove that you are going. So it's all just going to be like trust based, right? If you put yourself on there, then you're going. If it turns out there's some problem with it, someone can reach out to me and I can delete a record. Like, it's not that big a deal. Excuse me. Social links. I think we might just have like one link. Let people put in whatever they want. And when they click on your name, then it takes them to that link. Now, look, people could abuse this. They could add like some silly links. Again, I'll monitor it. Maybe we could like work on this, ways to like just whitelist certain domains. But, you know, not everyone's on Twitter. You know, I can't just require that you have to put in something with x.com at the start of it, you know? So I think that's okay. And then profile pic, we'll deal with that later. Yes, I agree. That would be nice to have. But I don't think it's critical for right now. I just want to have a database with a list of users on a map, right? I'm kind of big on that, actually. Like, this looks so cool to me. Anyway, so I can get rid of that. We've dealt with all of this stuff. Yeah. All right. So let's get those bits of info into our migration, and then we'll kind of do the same workflow that we just did. So if you are an attendee, let's again grab, look, I'm just going to copy all of this. We'll use it as some reference. Okay, so we'll also generate this UID. We won't need a slug. We will need the event ID. That will be on our events table. You will be required to put in where you're coming from, so we can plot you on the map. So we will have a city ID. And again, just like thinking about the order of these fields, to me, it matters. So you can't be an attendee unless you have an event that you're attending. You also can't be an attendee without telling us what city you're coming from. But the event there, to me, is more important. It's kind of like that's the parent of this attendee model. And then it just so happens that you also need to have a city, but it's not the parent, you know. The city itself doesn't know anything about, like, we wouldn't define on the city model an attendees relationship, because we would just never be accessing it based on that, I don't think. Anyway. Cool. So we're going to have first name, last name. Now, you know, I've been around. I know that there are people in the world that only have one name. I have dealt with a few cases of that over my career. I just don't want to encourage people to only write in like one name. Like, I wouldn't want to just see Mitch on there. I would want to see, you know, Mitch Davis or Mitchell Davis, right? So yes, I acknowledge this is kind of crappy, splitting this up, but it does cover like 99% of users. And it's not perfect, right? So anyway, there's always room to change and improve. Cool, so back to the model. So we now have a name. We're going to have a URL, and that will be nullable, because maybe you don't have anything that you want to share with people. That's fine. Yeah, and I don't think the URL will need like a title or anything like that. It's just literally going to be, you click on their name or their card or whatever, and it's going to take you to that link. So that's why, like, there's a difference here in calling these URL versus links, because like links has more to it. Anyway, cool. All right. So first name, last name, URL. I can't really think of, and we have city, right? So earlier, final thing, we did talk about the concept of like an attendee type. So whether they are an attendee or they're a speaker, or, you know, someone that should be highlighted. So why don't we add that as a string, and we will call that a type. Now you may think, okay, that should be an enum. I really don't like enums in databases, because if we add another type later, then now we have to modify the whole database schema. And like enums, running updates on enums, I don't think is like natively supported in Laravel's migration system. You have to kind of roll your own. I think it's been a little while since I've tried to do it, but I've been bitten by it before. It's a total pain in the bum. So, yeah, we're just going to have a field called type. And then that too is kind of like, that's an important one. Let's put it over here. Tell you what, this is the order that I'm going to settle on. So it's not necessarily like it doesn't need to go right at the front, but generally before I'm then starting to do these like other nice to have fields like URLs and stuff, I'm thinking of, okay, let's put in now all of our like required fields. So that way you kind of, when you're looking at it in your database client, like all the important stuff's on the left, all the secondary stuff's on the right. Cool. All right, so I'm pretty sure that one's good to go. So I know we haven't defined any like other indexes on this. I honestly think, well, we'll just regenerate those later. Like this is all just local anyway, right? So we'll go sail artisan migrate. Beautiful. All right, so now let's get our model sorted to have this information in it. So I'm just going to copy everything here. Attendee. So here's where we might call this like EVA because it's an attendee for an event. That's kind of the way I think about it. So this too does have cities. It also has event ID. What else did we do? Oh, that's right. I need to do my Control Shift dot, and then that will regenerate all the juice now that we've changed some migrations and stuff. So we won't need to define anything there except this type. So we're going to create a new enum in PHP in Laravel land, and that will be like string backed, and that's where we're going to store our those attendee types. Cool. So we will come back and define a type, and that will be an attendee type class. Cool. So it will also have the event belongs to event. It will have a city. We can revert that back to be the same as all the other ones where they pull from here. Cool. So if we were to ever put this into a route, then it would use that UID field, which is like the little hash generated thingy. Cool. This is looking pretty good. So now let's get our factory. Okay, let's copy this business. Tell you what, let's copy all of it. Attendee, attendee, attendee. Cool. All right, so now go event, event. So what do we need? We need, we do have a URL, that I know for sure. So we will say, not everyone will have that URL. So how do you get that to work? Is there like a sometimes thing? 'Cause sometimes I want this to be null. How do you get that to work? I forget. It's like a chance. There's a field called chance. Does anyone know how to do that? The globe looks really cool. Nice one. Thank you, James. We're exactly the same. Backed enums encode strings in the database. Yes. Love it. Agreeing more and more idea that you should keep logic in the app and not in your database. Preaching to the choir there. Okay, cool. So let's figure this out. So we can definitely do our first name and our last name. So that's easy. So they are last name, first name. I'll use the model ones. So how do we get this to be nullable? I know you can do it. Faker nullable field. Optional. Thank you. Okay, optional. So yeah, let's just say half the time, which is the default. Perfect. So I should be able to do that. Woohoo! There we go. It's all right. I got it, James. Thank you. We got the optional. That was what I was looking for. I knew there was a method. I just couldn't remember the name of it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this should work. So let's go to our seeder. And then we are going to create, I don't know, 200 attendees. So now that we have our event, can we go event attend? We need to define on our event that it has many attendees. Has many, yep. Attendee has many. Nope, has many. All right. So let's get rid of everything. Event seeder. Attendees. How do we do the factory business? Let's go learn about that together. We're coming up on an hour here. Has many. Okay. Okay. So it's not for, it's now has. There we go. So we will go attendee factory. Count. Yes. A little worried about the cities thing here. So if we go, sorry, that should be attendee factory. Let's just say 200. We can make that a little random later. Create. Now, I want to make use of that. Like, there's some ability to recycle an existing model for relationships. If you have models that share a common relationship with another model, you may use the recycle method. See, I don't want to do that. I want it to... There we go. That's the ticket. Okay. So what we want to do is we're actually going to pull in all the cities. Cities equals. Now, I don't like using the all method. I always like, if I'm dealing with a database, I always like getting into a query. Don't know. It's just the way I roll. I don't like doing the where, and stuff straight off the model itself. I really don't know why. It just is what it is. So I'm aware here that we're doing the same query twice, kind of. But it's fine. This is just in a seeder, Life's messy. It's fine. So we're going to go cities. We're going to do the shuffle here. after we pull them out. And then down here, we should be able to go cities, bring that back in. So we are going to make this random int. And let's say every event's going to have between 50 and 1,000 attendees. How's that sound? So if I run this, hopefully it works. Not quite. We're almost there. Type. We need our type. Thank you. All right, so let's get a new enum. Enums. Here we go. We already have an enum. This is perfect. I'm just going to copy this guy. We'll call this attendee type. Perfect. Let's put it in the right spot. It will be backed by a string. And then Chris, I think, has put together this little helper if we ever want to get like an array of all of the values or to deal with it as a collection. So you can either be an attendee or you can be, let's say, a speaker. Now, we could change this later to have like organizers if we wanted to, you know, sponsors, whatever. But for now, this will do. So what we need to do is go back to our attendee model and uncomment this, get that to work. And now we modify our factory to select from our enum. So how do we do that? Coffee break. We've done it before. Enums in our user factory. Here we go. This is going to do it. It's like random element or something, right? With experience. You're killing me here. That's the one. And there we go. There's our helper thing. So, attendee type. There we go. So yeah, so this is our tool array and it just pulls out all of the values from our enum. Cool. All right. So let's run it. We'll get there. Okay. Duplicate entry. Okay. So that's a bummer. This is the problem with trying to have things be unique. Look, let's just wipe out our database of events. How do we have that many events? Ah, I know what it is. Our attendee factory, we need to tell it, hey, use this event for whatever reason. For, sorry, not there. For, that's weird. Why do we have to do that? Okay. Clearly I don't know enough about this. So, for event, recycle cities, we're just going to create them. All right. So why don't I get rid of over here? Do we have any attendees? We don't. Cool. All right. So let's just truncate this table. Classic. All right. we're actually just going to go sail artisan, migrate, roll back, step 1. Yep. That should get rid of attendees, and then we'll do the same again for events. Cool. So now if we migrate, nice. Okay, so fingers crossed. Yeah. Go away. Yes. Cool. So we have 10 events and a lot more attendees. Perfect. And they have what looks to be real cities. Some of them are speakers. Some of them are attendees. A lot of them, too many of them are speakers, but that's okay. What else? Let's plot these people on a map, and then that will probably do it because we've been going for an hour now. So now we can get rid of all of this fake stuff. I'm just going to get rid of that. Woo! I hope you're excited. All right, so let's get our globe looking realistic. So we come to over here. So now our cities with users is just should just be event attendees. How would we get just the city IDs? Yeah, okay. So we will kind of do this in reverse. I wonder if there's another way to do it. But if we go, I want to select all the cities where they have attendees, event attendees for this event. So that might be like a has many through is one way we could do it. Or we could do what I said we wouldn't do earlier, which is to add another relationship to the city and say attendees over here. And we can go, oh, I'll rerun me helper generation thingo. Attendees. And then we go where event ID equals. Okay, so now forget about all of that. I think this should just work. That's the guess. All right, let's run it. Okay, we need a new event. So let's get this one. Yes. Okay, that is a lot of people. Wowza. Cool. Okay, nice. We've done it. So, why don't we now bring the scope of that factory down? That Cedar, which lives here. To just say, I don't want to get all cities. Let's limit it to like 100. And now we will randomize the order over here. So we can have, let's bring it down even fewer. So let's just say we've got 20 different cities that people are going to come from. We can have between 50 and 1,000 people, but they'll all be from the same set of 20 cities. So let's run that again. So this is going to generate some new events for us. Yep, I can see it's done that. So if I use this, does the map look better? It does. Okay, this looks a lot more realistic. Perfect. Look at that. All right. Well, that is not a bad spot to end this stream. So what I'll do, what would be best here? Yeah, what I'll do after the stream, I might mock this up to actually be again like Laracon US, and then get some more screenshots out. But that's probably a good spot to leave it. Like we've got this a long way. So in the next stream, what we might do is actually dump out our list of attendees here, which should be pretty easy. To give you a little preview. Is it enough to do this? Attendees. Does this just magically work? Not quite, but I bet we could make it. Give me 2 seconds. Attendees. We're going to add an appends. Name. We're going to define a new attribute, public function get name. It knows. Return. Is this how you do it? That one. This first name. This last name. Does this work? We've done it. Woohoo! All right, so next stream we'll actually turn this into like an ordered list and get people's cities. Maybe we'll do the profile photo thing. We'll get links to their Twitters or whatever you want to put in, and then we will, I think, actually make this thing live because you know time's ticking. There's only 2 weeks to go, so yeah, we'll make this live, and you'll just have like a button over here where you can just register as an attendee. We'll just ask you for the info that we've collected on the attendees model, a little modal that will pop up, and then bam, you'll instantly be on there and represented. Hopefully it leads to some interesting conversations. So, hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, love if you'd like it, share it, do all the normal stuff that all the YouTubers and streamer people say. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great rest of your day.